Yo, good morning. Well, it's not morning anymore. I just had to share um, this hill of compost. I'm trying to give you a scope of how big this is. This got to be I don't know if this the biggest, this is the biggest pile I've constructed by hand. I think I had a pile similar. It wasn't this big though. That's what these blueberries and this fig tree is growing in. It was a pile of compost that I just knocked down. But I don't think it was as big as this. There's a pile of kind of leaves under there, so it's probably gonna shrink like a third of that size. The roosters always crow when I'm talking. It's no wonder that I just popped them with the BB gun, but I can't do that. But hold on, I'm gonna give you a. I'm gonna go stand next to it so you can see how big this thing is. And I know I probably sound crazy about the compost deal, but it's to pay for a mound of compost this big. I mean, I think you probably can, from what I've seen. Um, it's got to be like 6, 8 yards. I know it's like 150 to 180 a yard. So I'm thinking it's somewhere between 800 to $1,000 worth of compost. I would guess. And it's just leaves, grass clippings, um, the bedding from the chicken coops, and yeah, had a couple of lawn care people drop off maybe a couple of loads, and there was just small like trailer filled, small trailer filled with like yard waste. But it's all yard waste. It's yard waste and chicken bedding. And I'm gonna go stand next to it so you can see how big it is. Huge. I want to jump in it, but it ain't ready for that. Yeah. And as it digging it up, usually as you turning it, um, you usually can watch it go from like brown or whatever color the leaves and the grass is. As you turn it, you slowly watch it turn into basically black dirt, black gold, black compost. I've never sifted my compost, but if it breaks down enough, it's almost no need for it. It just keeps breaking down. But that's quite a few yards right there. So it's probably the biggest pile I've constructed without the use of without going to get stuff, truckloads of it with a truck. This is all by hand and wheelbarrow. So that's a nice feat for me. Nice accomplishment. That was one of my goals for this winter. Get me a nice pile of compost, and I got it. So I finally compiled them into one. Now all I have to do is, I know I keep switching the camera angles. All I have to do is turn it, which probably takes about a good, I don't know. It took me part of the day yesterday and part of the morning today, so it's probably like a 4-hour job. So if I turn it once a week, it'll really heat up and break down quicker. Even if I just left it like that, it'll be ready for the spring if I didn't do anything. But I'm gonna try and make an attempt to turn it. I'm gonna turn it back and forth. This is my original setup. It's just pallets with boards and some chicken wire behind them. That was my original kind of setup to start building up my compost. And I realized after I started doing it, because I've hardly ever started or got a compost heap going. It's a lot of, I got one book on it. It's a lot of people talk a lot of stuff about compost, but I've realized the simplest way to do it is if you accumulate at least a yard of material, it's just going to compost. It's the volume helps. So if you don't have a lot, then having something like what they call a composting bin and that equipment works. But if you get a yard, is probably a pile. I would say if you piled it up naturally, it's probably a pile that's as tall as that garbage can. And that's just average size garbage can. Um, and if you get at least a yard, it's just gonna start to decompose. The worms are gonna find it. Like it's a lot of worms in here. Usually I toss a few worms to the chickens while I'm doing it. Or if I let them out, let them pick over it. The one pile I had last year, I would pile it up like this. It wasn't this big. And I would let the chickens run it over, and they would basically knock it down from here. They'll knock it down to there, and I come back and just rake it back up into a pile, and then knock it back down. And that was my way of tossing it. I'd rake it up, they'd knock it down. Rake it up, knock it down. And that works. Anyway, however you do it, if you keep moving it once a week, I say, even if you do it once every 2 weeks, it's going to break down. Because if you ever pick up leaves or even tree leaves in the, just on the concrete, you basically find compost. Like leaves in the gutter, if you find a pile of them, basically you find dirt in the bottom of it and stuff start growing in it. That's compost. So whether you toss it or not, it's going to break down, but it makes it break down faster. Some people like to add stuff to it, try to feed the microorganisms to speed it up. In this batch, I did add one of my piles. I burnt. It just kind of like makes kind of like some biochar and ash. So it's some charcoal and some ash in there. So this is like a good mix. It's got some leaves, pine needles, chicken bedding, which is everything from grass. Also got chicken manure. It's got everything in there. It's a pretty good mix. So that should be enough for all my beds. Now I gotta go and cut some vines, repair, fix this bed, and I need to de-vine this fence line and all my fence lines. Do some more vine cutting, more tree cutting. But this is a big deal, I know. Talk about compost for 10 minutes. It's a big deal. And if you've never, before I came down here, I've went and got compost, but I've never made my own compost. So in Minnesota and St. Paul, they collect the yard waste. And if you're a resident, they compost it for you, and you can go to a site and you pick up, it's a pile probably like, I don't know, 5 times this size, or maybe sometimes 10 times this size. And they got big trucks, and you go in there and you can put the compost in the back of your truck. I used to put it in the back of my car with a tarp, or whatever, buckets. People come there, and it's for the neighbors. They collect the yard waste, they compost it, and they give it back to you, which is cool. In Georgia, they're not doing that. They're barely collecting it. They damn sure ain't giving it back to you. If they're composting it, they probably selling it somewhere. So I don't know. But there's leaves falling everywhere you at. So if you go rake leaves, you can compost. So this is not my first time. This is probably my second or third year composting. And it was almost You know, if you read about compost and listen to people talk about it, some people make it almost like it's mysterious and it's high tech, and you got to add this and you got to get a starter, yeah, blah blah blah. But I found if you get at least a yard of material, which is pile something up where it's a pile like this, it, you know, and the peak of the pile is, you know, maybe to the top of that can. It's just gonna automatically, if it's sitting on the ground, it's gonna start to decompose. And if you start tossing it, you just watch the process. It get darker, darker, and darker, like this right here. At this point, this almost looks like a pile of black dirt, which is kind of what compost is compared to out here. Um, Most of the ground. That's why this is kind of unique out here because most of the ground. Let me get my shovel. Where's the shovel? I just had it. I was over here shoveling. Most of the ground is literally the color of that brick. It's I'm finna go show you if I can find my shovel. Wow. Oh, there it goes. A lot of the ground out here where I'm at, except under the trees because of dropped leaves, like back there, probably got 6, 8 inches of black dirt because of the trees. But a lot of ground, if you get down to it, you start digging. It don't take long. Here it goes. Before it gets to this.